With no set bedtime and no formal schooling, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie have raised their 6 children in anarchic fashion. Now, as their relationship implodes amid allegations of a physical altercation between Brad and his oldest son, DailyMail.com speaks to the family pastor who was witness to the actor's rather more traditional upbringing. Strict and religious, his childhood couldn't have been more different to the unruly lifestyle of his own children. In contrast to the rootless globe-trotting Jolie Pitt clan, Brad himself was brought up in a typical Midwestern town, Springfield, Missouri, the oldest son of devout Baptist parents. The family attended church each week, where Reverend Paul Swadley preached from the pulpit until the A-lister was a teenager. "I baptized him at the age of 9 or 10, but I don't believe it took," he told DailyMail.com this week, speaking from his home in Ozark, Missouri, just 15 minutes from Brad's childhood residence. "Some need physical," the 86-year-old said. "Some you can just look at and they behave, but some need training more than others. Some need a pat on the bottom. But my advice is to never do it when you're mad. When I disciplined my children, I never did it when I was angry. It hurt me more than it hurt them." According to reports, the Jolie Pitt divorce was sparked by a confrontation between Brad and his teenage son on a private jet. TMZ reports that the row escalated to the point that the star struck the boy, intentionally or inadvertently, and Jolie was forced to jump in to separate the two. The claims. But the allegations of abuse have been dismissed by those close to Brad, who they say has always been a devoted father. Indeed, as their family grew via adoption and the birth of their biological offspring, Angelina lost her mother Marceline, who raised her alone, to ovarian cancer. The deep loss inspired her to devote herself to parenting Maddox, 15, Pax, 12, Zahra, 11, Shiloh, 10 and twins Knox and Vivian, 8. Influenced by her own bohemian childhood, Angelina scaled back her work commitments and made her children her priority. She and Brad indulged the passions of their homeschooled youngsters in every way possible, mixing visits to refugee camps and war zones with an array of specialist tutors and occasional roles both on and behind the big screen. There are certainly some advantages to such an upbringing. Maddox, who was adopted from Cambodia in 2002 just as Angelina's marriage to Billy Bob Thornton collapsed, is fluent in English, French, Spanish, and Khmer. Has said to be a gifted football player. Angelina boasted in a BBC Woman's Hour interview that the others were also learning languages, as she aspires to raise global citizens. She said last year, "We travel often to Asia, Africa, Europe, where they were born. The boys, Maddox and Pax, know they were from Southeast Asia, and they have their food and their music and their friends, and they have a pride particular to them. But I want them to be just as interested in the history of their sisters' countries and mommy's country, so we don't start dividing." But this unconventional approach also comes at a cost. Former nannies have talked of the constantly jet-lagged children running wild at all times of the day and night. Neighbors at their Los Angeles home have complained of constant noise when the family are in town. Brad himself once jokingly compared the atmosphere in the family home with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is set in a mental institution. "That's morning time in our house," he said. "It's chaos from morning until the lights go out, and sometimes after that." According to Reverend Swadley's wife, Betty, this couldn't be more different to Brad's own conservative upbringing. Jane and Bill raised their 3 children to know the value of good manners, impressing everyone they met. "The Pitt children were the most polite children in our church," she said. "A lot of kids came from good parents, but theirs were just extraordinarily polite. I can't imagine Jane and Bill raising a hand to their children. They are a nice couple." According to Betty, Brad's attitude changed for good when he went to University of Missouri, where he began underage drinking. "He was friends with our son Mark, and he would tell us that Brad was drinking and partying," she said. "Our Mark was very straight-laced, so that was the end of their friendship. He's a church minister now." Her husband added, "We don't condone drinking in our church. Total abstinence." But while Brad's lifestyle today is a world away from his strict upbringing, his estranged wife Angelina's childhood was rather different. The daughter of Hollywood actor Jon Voight, the Tomb Raider star attended Beverly Hills High School. Angelina was extremely close to her mother, and in 2003 she revealed to Cosmopolitan that she had her mother's blessing when she lost her virginity as a young teen. "When I was 14, I was either going to be reckless on the streets with my boyfriend or he was going to be with me in my bedroom with my mom in the next room," she said. Divorce documents filed on Monday reveal Angelina and Brad, 52, separated on September 15 after 2 years of marriage. The actress said in a statement, "This decision was made for the health of the family." Brad responded, "I'm very saddened by this, but what matters most now is the well-being of our kids." Reverend Swadley, whose home Brad would regularly sleep in as a child when he was friends with Mark, now hopes Brad will return to his religion. "I fear for him. I don't know what will happen to him," he admits. "He could come back. He could be born again. If a person truly repents and asks him for forgiveness, the Lord forgives." Reverend Swadley sadly adds that they lost touch with Brad when he moved to Hollywood, but happened to run into him when the couple was visiting California, and the actor didn't even speak to them, even though he was a regular guest at their dinner table growing up. "We were in town watching Missouri play basketball. He went flying past on a golf cart. He didn't even recognize me," he says. Meanwhile, the tight-knit Springfield community is hardly rallying behind their most famous son. "When he's home, he's very arrogant, like he's better than us," says a source close to Bill and Jane, who spoke on the condition of anonymity. "He's kind of an a-hole, actually. I've heard that his parents hated Angelina and they used to fight about where Brad and Angie should get married. Mrs. Pitt wanted the wedding in Missouri and wanted restrictions on the open bar, but Angelina got her way. In the end, I heard that Jane and Bill left their wedding in France early because people were partying too hard." It's believed that Mr. and Mrs. Pitt, along with Brad's younger siblings Doug Pitt and Julie Neal, were blindsided by Angelina filing for divorce. Usually when a big story about Brad happens, they leave the town. But they're still here at the moment, says the source. DailyMail.com can confirm that Jane and Bill are holed up in their luxury mansion on the leafy outskirts of town, while Doug, who serves as the unofficial family spokesperson, has repeatedly declined to comment on his brother's legal situation.